What's good, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Six Pads. Damn, that's kind of weird hearing since we just made the switch over from I Talk Smack. But anyways, it's your boy Six Pads, and today we're gonna be touching on a subject about 2K20, and I actually want to hear you guys' feedback. So what we're gonna be talking about is if there should be archetypes in 2K20. And before we even start talking about everything, just let me know down in the comment section what you guys think about it. From my standpoint, I believe there's a good to archetypes, but there's also a bad to it, because some builds are way more overpowered than other builds. So let's get started. First thing, dual archetypes, a primary and a secondary. Now, the way that archetypes work, in all honesty, I believe that NBA players should be able to get at least a bronze of every badge that's included inside of the game. And since we're not able to, and we're confined to just whatever badges the game gives us, that's what makes overpowered builds. Like, the most OP build that we have in the game most likely is the pure lockdown, and that's just because they practically have one of every good badge in the game. They have everything that you need to succeed. They can shoot, they can dunk, and their defense is incredible. So you can just see how that makes a character overpowered. Now, if you look at like professional 2K play, every team needs a lock, and that's just the way to cut it. That's the best build in the game. Secondly, you look at other builds. There's definitely a dominant build for every single position in the game, and that's where it doesn't become very competitive, especially if there's a certain playstyle that you like to play as, and you're just put at a disadvantage in the beginning of the game. For instance, for point guard, well, as you guys know, in 2K19 there's no such thing as point guards. Shooting guard, it's always essential if you're gonna play the point that you need to make a sharp maker, because that just is the best point guard build in the game. Shooting guard, I see mainly in competitive play, like very high competitive play. That's where you have slashers. Typically at the small forward you run a lockdown, power forward pure stretch, and then your center you get a glass or rebounding athletic, something along those lines. But that's something that definitely needs to improve in 2K20 if they do decide to keep the archetypes. Nothing is for certain yet, and we don't know how the system will exactly work as of yet. We should be getting some information coming in months. The game is slowly approaching. We're about 5 months away from 2K20. So 2K19 is slowly getting into the end of its life cycle. We're about halfway through, actually. We're about halfway through 2K's life cycle. But yeah, that's one big factor that we definitely need to keep in mind if 2K decides to keep archetypes, to balance them out, so each build that you make has some benefit to it. Next thing I want to get into before we continue with this archetype talk is actually takeover. Now, takeover, I feel like needs to get removed from the game, because just for the sole fact that some takeovers are way more OP than other takeovers. For instance, I believe post scoring or sharpshooting are they're the two best takeovers that you can receive in the game, just because the sharpshooting takeover you're not missing, so it gives you an unrealistic boost, and it's just not fair. and the post scoring, you'll just get that push animation every time and it's an easy dunk, or even if you have a post fade, then you can do that too. So that I feel like that's something that also needs to get removed from the game. It gives players unfair advantage, especially with microwave when you only need for sharp 3 shots to get your takeover. It's just unrealistic. I feel like if they do want to do something like that, it just needs to be balanced a lot more than it already is, because it makes gameplay unrealistic and definitely damn near impossible to guard. For instance, with the stretch or something, they're not missing. Even if your hand up in their face, they can make light leads. Their heavily contesteds turn into light leads pretty much automatically, and that's just an unfair advantage that's given to them. Now, next thing on the archetype talk, I feel like a system that they could re-implement is how they had it, I believe, in 2K16, right before the archetypes came, and it was basically how they had the inside, the outside, or the balance. And I feel like that's a better system, because then you can make a player, depending on the position, is where the badges should really come from. Depending on what they choose and the position, and not solely on the fact of what build they make, because there's a lot of players that you can't classify with just 2 archetypes. It's just not fair to the players. For example, you can take a player in the NBA like LeBron, for example, where he's kind of like a shot creating, slashing playmaker. You can't classify him by just two archetypes. It's just not fair to the players, especially when this game should be IQ driven. That's a big factor on a lot of these players. This game is very IQ driven. It's very based on decision making, and as is real basketball. Real basketball is based on the same things. So you should be able to have, or to do actually, whatever your IQ allows you to. Not saying that centers should be shooting Steph Curry threes or anything. Just like if you make a high IQ play, that you should be able to execute it through the game. And I know that's something that they can definitely do. If you look at 2K16, for example, which is arguably one of the best 2Ks ever made, that system that they had in place was very well executed, I believe. And I think that's a key system that they should have in mind when they're thinking of 2K20. We've had archetypes now for 3 years, and it's slowly getting worse and worse. 2K19 is not as bad as 2K18 was. 18 was very bad. But I can tell you now that archetypes are not working. If you look at another game where they try to implement new systems that didn't really work, look at Call of Duty, for example, how they implemented the jetpacks, and that didn't really work. Our next topic that we're going to want to get into is how 2K actually changes things. I want to get into something very quickly, because 2K likes to do this, and you can look from this year for a good example. They change up the systems of how the game actually works midway through the game, and you have to adapt to a new system. What I'm talking about here is the contest. Now, I agree. I play stretch. I agree that stretch was very, very overpowered, especially in the beginning of the game. And I think that they were right to attempt to fix the contest system, but I think they failed at actually what they were trying to do, and they actually ruined shooting. What I'm saying from this is basically they made it so you don't even need a hand up. You can be right next to a player and you're getting lightly contested no matter what. Like if you see, for example, how my point guard right there took a 3 where he basically crossed the guy, he stepped back, and he had a wide open 3, but he didn't make it, especially since he had his grand badge, and it should have been lightly contested. It's not fair, and that's how they definitely ruin the game. They lose players by doing things like that, and that's just another thing that they need to fix inside of 2K20. Secondly, going on with this kind of topic of what they need to fix is implementing systems that definitely don't need to be in the game. This year we had a big problem with pushing, and it took them so long for them to actually fix that and take pushing out of the game. There's still some methods of pushing. I've seen it on a couple of YouTube videos, and that's just problems they need to look out in the beginning of the game, and they need to have that like fixed a couple months in, because we don't want to have to basically go through a whole life cycle of a game with the game-breaking glitch, because honestly that made Park pretty unplayable, because everybody was just pushing each other, getting wide open shots, and they were just abusing that mechanic to win. I feel like it should be more balanced. Take things like that out of the game. They're not needed at all. Next thing I want to talk about is actually 2K itself. Now 2K is based pretty much around microtransactions. That's where their main focus is, and that's kind of what they look for. I feel like they need to put a report system into the game. This is just very unfair of how they're worried about YouTubers and Twitch streamers exploiting VC glitches more than they're worried about people that go inside of the park and they're delaying games and they're lagging people out, and there's no report system, so they just get away with it. 2K has no system in the game that they can report or something to get rid of these players. And I feel like that's a big thing that they need to watch out for in 2K20, because it's an ongoing issue. It's been going on for the whole life cycle of PS3, PS4, and hopefully they can do something about it, at least to enhance how 2K20 is played. That's about it that I wanted to talk about for 2K20. Hopefully the game is amazing. Definitely gonna be picking it up day one, and there's gonna be a lot of videos on this channel about 2K, of course, and hopefully I could be one of the best stretches in 2K20, because I'm definitely committing to the stretch again. Hopefully it's still a good build. Yeah, and that's about it. And make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. There's about 2 minutes left in this video, so I'm just gonna let it play out, and I hope you guys have a nice day and enjoy. Peace.